New York is a city of constantly changing landscapes, but there are a few places around the city that have changed so much in the past few hundred years you would not believe it. To talk about a few of these is Manhattan Borough Historian Miscione. We're currently standing in a place that 200 years ago we would have been underwater.
A little bit longer than that. About 200 years ago we would have been in a recently landfilled spot that had formerly been known as the Collect Pond.
Right.
And that was the major source of water for colonial period New York. And it was a very pleasant and bucolic place. They used to have picnics here and ice skating, and presumably the Indians, the early Native Americans, also used it as a water source even before the Dutch arrived to settle the area about 400 years ago.
So what happened?
Eventually, the area was sort of overused. They had what are known as nuisance industries, tanneries, places like that, and they eventually turned it into sort of an open sewer in an effort to essentially wipe Collect Pond off the map. They landfilled it in the early 1800s.
So this area that used to be a pond, give us a sense of what's around us now.
Right now we're standing precisely in a park aptly called Collect Pond Park. This park, a substantial portion of it was sitting right in the pond.
Wow.
Way back 400 years ago. One of the more notable examples of landfill in Manhattan in recent memory is the creation of Battery Park City. It's on the western shore of Manhattan Island, and it was created largely from the material that was excavated when they created the World Trade Center.
Did the idea for Battery Park City come from the plans to build the World Trade Center? Was there always plans for that chunk of dirt to become something else?
I do believe so. I think it was a simultaneous concept. The lower Manhattan Hudson River shoreline was pretty dilapidated at the time, and it needed renewal, it needed revitalization.
So what's over in Battery Park City now?
Well, it's a very spiffy, new, modern community. It contains, for example, the World Financial Center, plus there's plenty of residential buildings, which is something new to downtown Manhattan because, of course, you know, for the most part, it wasn't considered a very residential area.
So on the opposite side of the island of Manhattan, around about the Midtown area, we've got the United Nations building.
Right.
It's very iconic. What did that used to be?
Well, that used to be an area of also nuisance industries like slaughterhouses and breweries and tenements and slums.
Is there any evidence that we could see today of what this area used to be?
Actually, there is, in a sort of a second-hand way. Tudor City, it's an apartment complex that is a little bit west of the United Nations. And it was built before the transformation of that neighborhood into the United Nations complex. And you'll notice on the walls that face the United Nations, there are very few and very small windows. They have small windows because they didn't want all these horrible fumes that would be coming out of these slaughterhouses and breweries drifting into the apartments.
Well, of course, New York is not only Manhattan. If we hop over the river into Queens, you see a lot of changes there as well. If you look at the number 7 subway line, it sort of tells the story of New York, doesn't it?
In a lot of ways it does. The 7 line is reflective of this city of immigrants where we live. If you travel the 7 line, you'll notice it goes from pocket to pocket of immigrant community. One extremely different from the next one, only a block or two away. It's an amazing line. Queens is the most diverse county in the entire country. The city fathers knew that they had a city to fill up. They knew there were crowded areas that could be made less congested if they could get people out to these undeveloped areas, and they knew that the subway would be the means to do that.
With so many things being changed, being covered up all the time, it must make it pretty challenging to be a historian in this city.
It does in many ways, because this city is defined by change. In a way, it's a good thing that things change in New York, that the history is sort of being remade with time, because it means New York is still a vital place, it's still a relevant place, it's still moving forward.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing those places with us. I'm Morton, and you've been watching Rocketboom.